Welcome to Doors to Hope and Healing, an inside look at foster care and adoption needs in Connecticut. My name is Jacqueline Ford. I have had the honor of working for the department for close to 30 years, and although I may be familiar with many of the topics I bring to you, I have invited experts in those fields to help dispel the myths and misconceptions that often act as barriers. Join us as we open our doors to an inside look at the Department of Children and Families. Samantha and Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us on the set of Doors to Hope and Healing. In celebration of Social Work Appreciation Month, having you both on the show. Samantha, you're already a social worker for DCF, and Jennifer, you're going to be doing an internship at DCF. I had the honor of meeting you and hearing about your life story. And it was so profound to me, and I just knew that our viewers needed to hear about your story because of your resilience as a child and just what a wonderful protector and parent you have grown to be. And now a DCF social worker where you're impacting the lives of so many children and families. So I want to start, your story is very detailed, and I enjoyed every moment of talking to you and learning all about your story. And of course, we don't have hours to share your story, but I want our viewers to really understand that your initial story of how you started out as a child didn't define you. Your experiences gave you a purpose, and that's really what led you to where you are today. So let's start back. Bring me back to when you were just a 12-year-old little girl, and you had to make a pretty adult decision.
Right. So I recall one day we were just home. It was me and my 3 sisters and our mom, and we were at home. We were just hanging out, listening to music, and all of a sudden my mom says, I'll be right back. Hours go by and my mom never returns until this kid came upstairs and told us that our mom got arrested. At such time, I didn't know what to do. I was just a kid. So I went into the room, I packed up some of our stuff, and I walked with my sisters to my grandmother's house.
And that was in New York? You were living in New York at the time? So when you get to your grandmother's house, was it your thought that once you reached your grandmother's house that you were going to be able to stay there with your sisters? I
don't even remember what was going through my head, but just going to my grandmother's house, I felt like maybe we could stay there. I didn't know that, eventually DCF was going to show up and take us all. It was pretty late. It was like the middle of the night when it happened. And so you going to your grandmother's with your sisters was really your safety plan, that you didn't even know that you had created that safety plan in your mind as just a 12-year-old little girl. I think it's just incredible. So when you're at your grandmother's house in the middle of the night, child welfare comes. And what happens next? And I am not sure what conversations that they're having with my grandmother, but eventually we end up leaving, and we get taken in this big van, and I remember we were just crying a lot, and they take us to this big place that had other children. It was pretty scary. I'm sure that it was. Yeah. How did you feel being with your sister? Did you feel as if she was your protector and she was kind of guiding the way for you at that moment? Because you were how old at the time?
I was 10.
10 years old at the time?
10. I feel like Sam's always been our protector, and she's always taken care of us, even when we lived with our parents. She always was the one to get us up for school, or to tell us what to do, or where to go, where to be, when to be there. So it was, I don't even know. Right. It was just kind of the natural way that, in our terms, and you're learning in social work, and quite well, it's called a parentified child. So Samantha was parentified. It was her role to take care of all of you. So I could only imagine that, given that role that you had with your family, and being now in this kind of tenement where it was like a holding place for children to be placed into foster care from there, that the horror you must have felt, because from what I remember, you weren't placed together. No, we were in the children's center. I don't even know how long we were there for. But we were there, and it was like the rooms, the way they were set up, it was like
you were split up by age, and you were also split up by your gender. And eventually, every day I got to see my sisters, but eventually they did split us up into separate foster homes, and Jenny actually went into a foster home with her sister Kimberly, and I was placed with my 2-year-old sister Frances.
So when you were in foster care and you were separated, were you able to have sibling visits while you were in foster care?
Yeah, we were. It's not the same thing as living with your sister and seeing them every day, but we got to see each other sometimes on the weekends.
And that was the first time you had been separated from Samantha.
Yeah.
And how did that feel? How were you? Do you remember how you were feeling being separated?
I feel like I also had to step up because I had Kimberly, and I had to be strong for her in a way, and we were all, we were all separated, so it wasn't like we weren't all together. I'm thankful that we were all together going through it, because I don't know what I would have come out like from that situation if I was by myself.
So all 4 of you really endured all of this together. So what's the age difference between you and Kimberly?
Kimberly is 3 years older? No, 3 years younger.
So you were so in your situation in foster care, you were older than Kimberly, and you were her parent in that situation, looking out for her, and you with your little sister, who was significantly younger than you at the time. And I know that your experiences in foster care in New York weren't all that wonderful.
No.
So tell me now, so you're in foster care and you have a relative in Connecticut who is working to become licensed to care for you, and we call that kinship care. So and this was at a time many years ago in our system where it wasn't always common for children in foster care to be placed with a relative, where now we're making incredible attempts to find home situations like that for our kids that enter foster care now, because we have found that children who are placed with family in foster care do much better and less disruptions to be familiar with family. So you have an aunt and uncle in Connecticut who's working tirelessly to fill out all the paperwork and complete the trainings. And were you all able to move to Connecticut and live with your aunt and uncle?
Eventually, yes, we were all able to move with her. I think it was after 1.5 years or something like that. In foster care, we got to move in with our aunt and uncle. But when we were in foster care, it was a very, it's just not fun experience. And I would see my sisters when we had prison visits with our parents. But in the meantime, they're facing different cultural barriers, and I'm facing different cultural barriers because we're placed with different foster parents who are different race than us.
And that was just a challenge in itself.
Oh, yeah.
And knowing how your little sister was being treated. So it was probably just, very reassuring to know that you had a family member in Connecticut that was fighting to have you come and live with them. So tell me more about that. So you moved to Connecticut eventually, and you're adopted by your aunt and uncle, and their children become like siblings to you. You're all being raised together as brothers and sisters. Yeah. How was that experience? Start early on with your experience with your uncle and everything that had happened there.
Okay, so when we first moved to Connecticut, it seemed like maybe it was like a honeymoon phase. You think everything's going well, but it was pretty challenging. There was 2 adults, 7 children, and I'm the oldest at the time. They had their own 3 children and then taking in 4 kids. So that was pretty challenging. And as time went on, you started to see that it wasn't a honeymoon. You still never have that feeling of this is really my home. My uncle and my aunt both had substance abuse issues. There was domestic violence involved. And throughout those years, it was pretty difficult for us to, live there, because it was always, these are the adoptive kids and these are the biological children. And eventually, tragedy striked, just as it was going to come down to it. My uncle ended up committing suicide in his bedroom. And when that happened, my aunt became worse. Her mental health deteriorated, and the substance abuse piece was not making it better. She began to leave the country a lot, and she will leave my siblings at the house. And
you were at this time in college when this was happening? You were at Southern,
yes,
pursuing your degree in social work.
Yes.
So do you prefer to be called Jenny?
Doesn't matter.
So Jenny, when you're living at home with your aunt now, who's taking off and going to the Dominican Republic, now had you assumed the role that Samantha had in being kind of head of household?
I did, because I was actually in college also. So after the summer, I didn't go back to school because she never came back.
Wow.
So I decided to stay home with them because I didn't want any more random family members just coming in and out. So I decided to stay home with them. And it was a struggle because I don't have a degree. I stopped going to school. I'm taking on all these responsibilities with the kids, and it was a struggle, like getting them up in the morning, making sure that they're in school, making sure that I'm going to my part-time job to try to pay as many bills as I can, because she stopped completely sending money. She stopped communicating with me. It was just like, you're on your own. And
you were just a young teenager at that time, right? Were you 18 probably?
Yeah,
if you were
19.
19 in college. So now your aunt is gone. She doesn't come back, and you graduate from Southern and you move back home?
I did move back home, and as I was there, I was trying to take care of the kids. And she didn't like that the children respected me the way they did. She didn't like that we were trying to get her help. And one day she ended up just kicking me out. At that time, I was already working for DCF. So when I first started working for DCF, it was June 2016, I was homeless because I didn't have a place to live. So I had to be sneaking in and out of dorm rooms at Southern Connecticut State University. So it was pretty tough. And meanwhile, I was just worrying about the kids and what's going to happen to them.
And then eventually your aunt loses her home to foreclosure.
Yeah.
And other family members step in, from what I remember, and you go and live with them until you can get your feet on the ground and get that paycheck from DCF that you're starting to work and get your own place. Is that the next step?
So what happens next is that I end up staying at Southern until I'm able to get my own apartment. And it was just a 1-bedroom at the time. But prior to that, I was taking the kids to my house every single day so that they can take showers, because the electricity was off, the water was off, everything was off. So every single day after work, I would take them to my house and then bring them back. So as soon as I found out that this was happening, I got myself a different apartment, and I got all the kids to come with me.
Because you had this space now to have everyone come and live with you?
Yeah, and she didn't end up coming back. So I had to go through the house, try to find birth certificates, and to try to get the legal process started so I can get custody of the kids.
So let's talk about that, the legal process with the paperwork that you needed, and to show that your connection to them, your blood connection to your sisters, and the adoptive connection to your cousins. What was that process like for you?
Oh, it was very challenging. Even though I worked for DCF, it was still very challenging. It's like, I don't know where their birth certificates are. I don't know where anything is. The house is going for closure. I had to find things. And even just going to the court and applying, and they give you the application and you take it and you fill things out, and then you go back and they tell you that you're missing things, and they're like, where's your mom? And I'm like, I don't know where she is.
So they were really abandoned. You were an adult at the time, but the other children, how many children were still under the age of 18 when you started the legal process?
There was 3 of them. 2 of them are the same age, and my brother actually ended up living with my other brother. So, but 2 of them came to live with me. Jenny and my other sister Kim were both adults, but they also ended up coming to live with me.
and then you received custody of them through probate court?
I did, and
Yes.
I was so happy. That was a happy day because as soon as I got the kids, I know we went through so much trauma. And when my uncle actually committed suicide, the kids were in the house. And, you know, I knew that they needed help, and we all needed help, but I couldn't do anything without having custody of them, especially because I have this baby face. So,
and now you have a family of 7 kids. So you have the kids, and now you can, you know, make sure that they're enrolled in school and activities and therapy, and
Yes.
and they just stayed with you in your apartment until you were able to purchase a house, right?
yes.
Yes.
Finally purchased a house this summer, and it was just such a happy time because so many of us. So
There is.
sleepovers can be a little difficult sometimes, especially when you don't have space or privacy. So now I'm very excited about that.
So your house is kind of the place to be. That
Oh yeah, it's never quiet.
Well, you in so many ways are the matriarch of the family. I mean, you are that glue that holds everybody together, and you were selfless for so many years at a time when, for both of you, that you can be, you know, that generation of being selfish. You're in college, you're graduating, and you didn't have time to really enjoy those years because, you know, and, you know, you had said something to me when we had met about you had no choice, that those were your babies and that you needed to do what you felt you needed to do.
Oh yeah, there was no it wasn't even an option. You know, some people say, do they respect you? You know, do they listen to you? And it's like, it's never been a worried or a thought process in my mind, because it's something that I've been doing my entire life. And even though I'm the main person doing it, I couldn't have done it without the help of my sisters themselves. It's like we help each other.
And you met someone along the way. You are engaged, and he, you know, when you shared your life story and included him in that chapter, he really helped you. And do you want to talk? We have a few more minutes. Do you want to talk a little bit about the support that he was able to provide you?
Yeah. So my fiance, he is amazing. I was very lucky to meet someone that can put up with my baggage because there's a lot. We met in college, and now we've been together 4 years. We're engaged, and you know, he was just my support system along the way. You know, my sisters, every single time they look at me, they say that I'm the strongest person in the family, but in reality, it's like I couldn't have done it without him. He was my rock. When I was their rock, he was my rock.
Because you needed
and,
someone too.
Yeah.
And he taught you how to drive a
He
car.
did teach me how to drive, because I couldn't get an internship at DCF without knowing how to drive. So when that happened, I was like 22 when I first learned how to drive, and he was the one that was teaching me. He's the one that drove me to my interviews, and just supported me every step of the way. You know? So it's like I have someone that believed in me all along, and that's how we were able to do it.
And Jenny, what are your future aspirations? You hope to be a social worker?
I do.
You do?
I'm working on that.
Yeah,
I'm almost there.
And when do you anticipate you're going to graduate?
August.
Oh, good. Good for you. And you'll be starting your internship soon?
Yes. I'm going for fingerprints tomorrow, actually.
That's very exciting. So we'll have 2 of you eventually working for our agency.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think you're both exactly where you're meant to be. And Samantha, you're 26 now?
I am.
You're 26, and the experiences that both you and Jenny and all of your siblings have had are more than most children experience or adults experience in a lifetime. And I think that you're both remarkable young women, and you've made such a profound impact. And when I met you, I said, this story really needs to be shared. She can't be real. You know, this can't be a real situation, because you were just so focused and so dedicated on your siblings and did everything in your power to make sure that they were safe and well cared for. And you're, you know, a perfect example of strong social work ethics and case practice, and can imagine you're going to help so many families at DCF.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I wish we had more time to talk about your story, but we have a Spotlight on What's Right, which is a newsletter publication of all of the work that's being done kind of on the inside of DCF, and it's an opportunity to shed a light on all of the great work that our staff are doing, or the stories of who our staff are. And I think that, you know, both of your stories it's going to be something that's going to touch the hearts of so many people.
Thank you.
So I thank you both for being on the show. So for the full story on Samantha and Jenny, you could visit our DCF website where we have the chronicle of all of the stories, and that should be available next month. And now I'd like to end our show with a video. Thank you.
Really important for foster parents to embrace all different type of ethnic or religion differences.
My mom didn't care what color skin I was or where I came from. As long as you can offer child love and you can offer that child respect, that's what they need.
Regardless of your gender, your race, your sexuality, be a foster parent.
It's not what a foster home looks like, it's what a foster home can give us.
Any home is a good home, as long as there's love and support.
If you can provide food and clothes and love for a child, then it's a perfect home.
You could make a difference in that child's life, and they can make a difference in your life.
I have absolutely no idea what my life would have turned out if I didn't end up in the foster care system. The foster parents made that difference.